Welcome to Serve News. As Pierre tries to expose the Liberal failures, he gets silenced by Liberals, NDP, and the Bloc using point of orders that turn out to be debate, not real point of orders, of course.
Increase in 2 years in house prices. Well, obviously, it was the massive flood of new cash into the financial system which got lent out, and we need to have accountability for that. Now, why does this matter? Given that the quantitative easing program seems to be over for now, we have to elect a government that will never allow the use the central bank as a personal ATM to print cash, inflate costs, and destroy the purchasing power of the working class. And when I'm Prime Minister, we will get the central bank back to its core mandate of stable, low prices, not paying off politicians' spending.
Wouldn't it be nice to have a personal bank to print money out of? I'm sure everybody would love that.
That's common sense. Now, Madam Speaker, what we're really talking about here is common sense. I'm proposing common sense measures that are attracting the support of Canadians across the political spectrum and in every corner of the country. Let's start with my first priority of common sense, which is to bring home lower prices. How are we going to do that? We're going to start by axing the tax. Let's axe the tax. Everything the Prime Minister said about the carbon tax has proven false. First, he said the tax would never go above $50 a ton. Well, it's now gone above that already, and he admits he's going to quadruple it. Gross. It's going to go up to $170 a ton, plus there will be a second carbon tax caked on top of it, which will have the effect of quadrupling the current tax from roughly, depending on the province, 15 or 16 cents a litre up to 61 cents a litre. That is his radical and insane plan, fully supported by the NDP.
If you could use electric for all aspects of your life, would you be worried the electrical companies would export that? Or would you be fine with that?
NDP wants to raise taxes on working class Canadians for the crime of heating their homes, gassing their trucks, or feeding their families food made on a farm. So that's the choice in the next election. We are going to have a carbon tax election. Yes. Yeah, we are. And the Prime Minister can avoid it, could try to avoid it all.
Have another point of order from the Honourable Member for King's Heads.
I'd like to seek unanimous consent to ask the member opposite a question specific on what he's talking about right now.
The Honourable Member doesn't have unanimous consent. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Madam Speaker, I am glad that member stood up, because I know what the question he was going to ask. He was going to say when the...
Point of order, the Honourable Member for Drummond. Well, I'm a little confused. The Honourable Member just said that the next election will be on the carbon tax. But what does that even mean for Quebec? There is no carbon tax that will apply in Quebec. I'm sorry, but this...
They keep saying that. The Bloc is accepting the new carbon tax that is upcoming. And they trying to mislead everybody, saying that the carbon tax doesn't apply in Quebec, but they're going to implement it soon. So, like, what the hell? Dumbasses.
This is debate. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Madam Speaker, I know the member for King's Heads was going to ask me about the monstrous Axe the Tax rally I held in his community.
Yes, he was.
That's what he was going to do. He was going to ask me about the roughly 1,000 people that crammed into that room, and boy, were there great people. If I could pay the member a compliment, he represents some great people. Yeah, they are wonderful common sense people, but Mr. Speaker, I'm afraid they are very unhappy with that member. Very unhappy indeed. And I am told that what happened is that member found out about the size of that rally and the number of people who were going, and he had a total meltdown.
No.
The member had a total meltdown. He burst into tears. He called the PMO. He said he's going to lose his seat. He told them that that when he grew up, he was told that he would always be a somebody. He was going to be an important guy, and now he was on the verge of losing his seat. And he called the PMO and said, if you don't give me a pause on the carbon tax, I'm going to march out of the caucus.
That's right.
He then whipped up a group of Atlantic MPs, and they marched over to the Prime Minister's office and began banging on the door and said,
Member for King's Hands on the point of order.
You seek unanimous consent to ask the member a question.
The
Oh,
member has no unanimous consent. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
and so they were all all the Atlantic MPs banging on the door. The Prime Minister was behind the door. He was in the fetal position, sucking on his thumb. He was crying his eyes out, Madam Speaker, because his Liberal MPs were threatening to walk out of caucus. And so he walked out and...
Member for Elmwood Transcone on a point of order.
And the leader of the Conservative Party decides to get his first job outside of politics, if he too will be a drama teacher.
Well, I couldn't even hear what the Honourable Member for Elmwood Transcona was saying because the Honourable Member was... So I will ask him to repeat it, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm sorry I wasn't loud enough the first time. I was wondering aloud if when the leader of the Conservative Party decides to get his first job outside of politics, if he'll be a...
That is not a point of order. I'm sorry, it's a point...
This is one of their tactics to try and silence Pierre, and this speaker is letting it happen, it seems.
of debate. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition has 2 minutes.
Says the guy who's been living off a parliamentary paycheck since he was born because his dad was a member of Parliament, Mr. Speaker.
Ouch. 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 Ouch.
And he still is. And so, Madam Speaker, the reality is that member from King's Hands was among those Liberal MPs banging on the door, begging the Prime Minister to relent on his carbon tax. The Prime Minister, shaking on the ground, finally agreed to relent, and out he walked to an unannounced, unscheduled press conference that wasn't even in his itinerary moments earlier, without any written materials to announce that he would put in a temporary 3-year pause. But just for some people, in regions where his poll numbers were plummeting and his caucus was revolting, and boy, were they ever revolting, Madam Speaker, and there is now that temporary pause on the carbon tax, a carve-out. He said his environment minister says there will be no more carve-outs. Well, there already have been. For example, there's no carbon tax on the industrial sector in Canada. They have a carve-out. There's no carbon tax on large cement plants or concrete factories.
The Honourable Député de Jonquière.
The Honourable Member for Jonquière. I don't know whether there's an interpretation issue, but it's really muddled. There's talk about a documentary and a carbon tax that does not apply.
Wait a minute. He didn't talk about the documentary at all this time, but he threw it in there anyway. Like he expected it and wrote it down in his answer and forgot to remove it.
In Quebec, because it's really hard for us to understand. It's not making much sense.
Madame la Présidente.
Madam Speaker, this is not a matter of language and understanding. It's just that it's hard to translate or interpret common sense for the Bloc Québécois.
Carlton can tell us if he'll be continuing so I can ask my question when he actually has the chance to re-engage on this.
Leader of the Opposition resumes his speech. And it being 5:40.
Subscribe to the channel and don't forget to tell me your opinion on this matter down below and like the video. Bye for now.